So here's something I've been noticing over my years in design. I'll work with my design team and they're gonna give me estimates on their work that are frankly sometimes a little bit too long and they can't really justify why. In some other circumstances, they come with some beautiful design work, but then engineers tell us that they're not gonna be able to implement it. Everyone gets frustrated and we've wasted a lot of time. So today I want to talk a little bit about designing at different scales, which impacts how long something will take, but also whether or not something can actually be shipped and is feasible. Both of these things will determine your success as a designer, and these are things that people are going to look for when they're thinking about your career, whether to promote you into senior leadership roles or whether or not you're going to stick around in an organization, especially in this age of AI. Hi, I'm James Law. I am a senior product leader with over 10 years of experience in the digital space, and today I'm here to continue with our OBS framework. We talked previously about designing for outcomes, then we talked about designing for behaviors, and today we want to talk a little bit about designing at scale. When we think about scale, there's a few key considerations we want to understand. Number one, what I'm designing for, how often is this pattern going to be reused? And really, are we just trying to optimize and fix a small problem versus designing for something much bigger? The second thing we want to think about when we talk about scale is how much impact is my design or my design change going to have across the entire system? So for example, a small app you use day to day on your phone, those changes can be made without a lot of consideration. But if you're working for a large enterprise, a Fortune 500 company, for example, anytime you make a change may have cascading impacts across the entire organization. That changes how much it would cost to do it, and therefore whether or not it's going to be feasible in the first place. And number three, when you design at a much higher scale, you really need to consider how the rest of the team that you're working with is going to absorb that change as well. And that has implications on how you'll be seen as a designer and whether or not some of your work is even going to be considered. So we're going to talk about all those three questions within three key contexts of scale today. The first is going to be at a pure interaction level. The second is going to be at a product or a journey level, and then the third one is going to be at a platform level, which is the highest scale possible within an organization. All right, so let's start talking about that first level of scale, interaction. This is the smallest scale that's possible within an organization or an app, and it's the one that most junior designers will really start at. This is really at its core about layout or some very, very simple interaction patterns that a digital asset is trying to produce. Put more simply, this is about buttons, where things are on a screen, copy, layout, really simple things that sometimes leaders will use to challenge or test a designer. But really what this is about is how quickly can you take a problem and solve it at a fast pace. So a key tip here is when you diagnose something to be at that interaction level pattern. So again, copy on a button, maybe where a button should be placed, a very small friction point. What you're gonna wanna be sure to say is that this is something that you can solve fairly quickly, maybe with some quick testing, and or this is something you've seen in other places and are just gonna simply borrow the patterns. What you don't wanna come back with at this point is saying something like, oh, well, we're gonna have to do about 3 weeks of research, then I have to digest it, and then we'll do some testing of the design, et cetera, putting something that really should take about 1 week into the scope of about a quarter or even more than that. Really what folks are looking to you for when you're assigned something at that interaction level is just really how can you consume data that's already out there and move at pace in order to correct that issue very quickly. This may be a little scary, frankly, for those who are just coming out of design school, where you're taught everything from the double diamond framework to always spending more time soaking and understanding the problem. But in reality, some of these challenges are what we call solved patterns or solved problems. What this means when we talk about solved patterns is that you can simply search on Google, use an AI tool or other platforms like Mobin, look for patterns of how this has been solved, and then implement it within the design and matching the colors of the organization or the design system at hand. In many ways, what your work is to quickly mock something up so that can be shown to product leaders or other leadership so that it can be moved into production. Where there is an opportunity, quite frankly, at this point to show a little bit of strategic thinking is to do some very quick and simple testing. You can take the pattern, don't spend as much time on the design itself, but take that pattern, put it in the palette and branding of your organization, and then test it with 5 to 10 users within a day or two. Show some increase in usability metrics, communicate that back out effectively, and you've essentially been able to help an organization make a decision that is data-informed in an extremely quick amount of time. That is the type of strategic thinking that most leaders are looking for within this interaction level. The other thing to keep in mind is that while you do your exploration, you may think about some other elements that you want to bring in. You may say, hey, we should change the downstream click path pages. Or maybe you really want to fundamentally think about the layout of the entire page or tab at that point. That is not necessarily what's being asked of you when you're solving for a pure interaction problem. While you may want to bring up some of these ideas and concepts to your manager so that you show you can think bigger, at that point in time, the organization and the team isn't really looking for you to make suggestions about the larger design system or even the larger platform as a whole, because they're really just trying to get you to solve this one problem. The more you can solve these problems quickly and efficiently, however, the more they are going to look to you to solve things at different scales. The second level we really want to think about in terms of scale is when you're not designing just purely for interaction, but you're designing more at a product and or a journey level. I think depending on where you are working or where you may be trained, these things are very different for you, but they really require the same thing, which is thinking a little bit beyond just a single screen and thinking about the implication of any change across a broader set of interaction points. So for example, if we think about making a change to a chat interface for a very specific use case to solve a very specific interaction problem, this could be appointment scheduling, how you think about that changing that flow may actually have consequences for how it's used in different circumstances. So for example, booking an appointment with a doctor may be very different than booking an appointment with a pharmacist or a physiotherapist if we're talking about health applications. This is because different information has to be provided, or maybe the service provider themselves has different types of availabilities. So as you make those changes, you have to think about those things at those different scales. When we talk about a product specifically, this could be a situation where, if we go back to the booking example, you're working on a product that service providers specifically use to offer appointments. So how you design solving for a physician market may be different than how you design solving for a physiotherapist market. What's important in this circumstance is that even if the physician market is the one that needs a change, that as a more strategic designer thinking at a slightly different scale, within your design plan, you make sure that there is some reevaluation with the other segments of users, which can be done internally. You can do it internally as a team and just say, check, check, we're gut checked, it's good. Or you make a recommendation if that change is big enough that you actually have to go back to some of your other user segments and just validate that the flows, when they change, are still working. In some more modern tech companies, this may not be a problem because the tech is flexible enough to adapt to those different segments. But if you are like many different players in the market, the technology is probably tied to some legacy systems, so those changes aren't often as variable as they could be, or rather, you may need a one-size-fits-all approach. The other situation when we're thinking about more of a journey approach, this is probably more when we're talking about front-facing consumers. So if we take, for example, a goal-setting flow, so this could be something in health applications or other fitness applications, you're asking people to set their goals, whether it be weight loss, sleep management, those sort of things. Making a change, for example, to accommodate onboarding. Let's say our challenge is that onboarding onto this app, into this journey, is taking a little bit too long. You want to make some design changes, for example, that maybe shorten it or make it more simple to do. However, if that exact same data collection flow is used in different phases of the journey, for example, if someone has been successful at tracking a weight loss goal, maybe as a company you want to nudge that person to add more types of tracking and continue all their data aggregation. At that point, since someone is so familiar with the app, with your product, or maybe they've demonstrated loyalty, shortening that amount of data gathering may not be the right thing to do. It actually may scare them away because it shows that there's no depth as they continue to partner with them in your health journey. In that case, you want to, again, make sure that you're testing your changes across different phases of that journey. You want to be demonstrating that you understand that different segments of users across different segments of their journey have different levels of loyalty and different target behaviors, which we discussed in the last video. And then you want to make sure that you design a plan that shows how you're going to address these concerns so that what you recommend at the end of the day is actually doable and will actually drive some of the outcomes that the organization or the product overall is looking to drive. The other thing to really keep in mind outside of journeys and products and the users of them is that when you're designing at these levels, the governance starts to change a little bit. So while when we were talking at a smaller scale, the interaction level, again, there's not a lot of risks. They're looking for a fast decision. When we're talking about designing at a product and or journey level, there's probably more stakeholders you're gonna have to keep in mind. So for example, your product leadership team, or if there's a journey leadership team, they're gonna wanna be much more involved in the decision-making and frankly, even in the framing of the problem. So what that means is that you have to bring those folks much earlier on in the process and keep them informed, socialize, and align on how you're planning your implementation process. The other thing to keep in mind is at a product and journey level, like we were referencing earlier, as you do these changes and implementations, it really starts to have implications on the technology at scale. What this means is that if we want more fragmentation in our designs within a product or a journey, we're gonna have to build more logic models to understand which types of experiences to put different types of users down. And ultimately what that means is that the product, the journey itself, the technical teams, the product teams, and even you as a designer have to keep more and more in mind over time as we continue to build and refine the product or the journey. So what you really want to do in this case is understand how to manage the trade-offs. How do we optimize for those outcomes and behaviors when we design at a product and journey level, vis-a-vis the amount of technical debt and or costs that we're going to accrue in the product or journey over time. Again, this isn't something that you as a designer need to solve, but it's something that you as a designer need to understand, help frame up, and demonstrate that you can speak this language in order to be considered a strategic partner. So the movement from interaction design, pure interaction design, to more of a product and journey level is a quite significant jump. But this is again where, as we discussed before, where you want to have a partner in your manager or leader to understand and help them give you advice on how to manage these conversations more effectively. That's why they're there. That's why they have more experience. And that's why they're there to help see you grow. All right, so that brings us to the last scale that you can move towards. And if you thought the jump from 1 to 2 was kind of scary, well, unfortunately, the jump from 2 to 3 is even a little bit more dramatic. But this is why design is a practice. It's why we're a community. And it's partially why I want to help with these videos. So the third level of scale we're talking about is platform. Essentially, this is a bit, in a way, is the ultimate abstraction of a user experience. So where in the first scale, at an interaction level, we're talking about how do we change a button. And at the second scale, we're talking at a product and journey level, which is how does that button change impact the overall product or the overall journey. The platform level is really about how do we ensure that that button change impacts and or does not change our technology in a way that means we can no longer change that button in the future. And if you've been working within design for a while, that example may seem a little bit rudimentary, but frankly, I actually think some of those basic explanations are still the best ones to understand. What we talk about when we're designing at a platform level is we're really thinking about how experiences can scale across multiple channel types and also enable our tech partners to build those at scale. So previously, what we would be really concerned about is how do we design an experience that is usable both on a mobile application, a web desktop, and then a web mobile device as well. So how do we ensure that how we design our experiences and how we work with engineering to minimize the amount of complexity involved in building those experiences ensures that we can deploy them across those channels, both at low cost, but also make it more manageable over time. With the advent of AI, now we've started to add even more interfaces and more experiences to that channel, essentially, our channel library, if you will. So now we have to design for user declarative app, web on mobile, and however agentic experiences may want to consume those components as well. What this really means now is that you have to be able to understand the emerging patterns across these different interfaces, and then also think about the user behaviors when it comes to these different interfaces, so that as you think about experiences and making changes, we're delivering somewhat level of parity in user satisfaction, but also ability to complete those journeys across all our products, essentially. So I think this is going to start changing a little bit over the next couple of years because with the agentic channel being even more prevalent, I've seen a lot of product partners and eng partners basically say, well, why don't we just design within an agent? Why don't we just design within AI channels? Why don't we just design maybe within mobile as well with some AI involved, with some of those more core web experiences being left behind? I think if you're in an industry where maybe you're a bit of a startup mode and you're able to better only focus on certain things, this works well. But if you're like me at all and you are working in a larger enterprise where we have users who are still really stuck to their desktops and just want to be able to buy things on the internet, and you have folks who are looking for much more value through an AI channel or an agentic experience, you're gonna really have to learn how to not only scan the use cases across all these channels, but also how to scale your work across all these channels. I would be lying at this point if I said I had the only solution for you about how to scale effectively, because we're all learning within this framework. But in reality, I think there's really some core principles that we want to keep in mind. The way that we are continuing to build and think about technology, even though we're AI powered, really remains relatively the same, which is how do we think about things within their building blocks? The challenge here will be understanding whether agentic building blocks are similarly used within web and mobile as well. They may not be in some circumstances, but they may be in some. And I think what you're gonna have to do as a designer is understand, are agentic experiences going to change how users then use non-agentic experiences? So for example, previously in mobile and web applications, if you've been in the game for a long time, you know we've struggled with notification tiles, notification bells, all these wonderful things. With agentic experiences coming to the forefront now, there is a higher demand for personalization than ever. So what we expect from something like ChatGPT or Claude is not lists and lists of notifications that we dismiss, but rather what are the only top 2 to 3 things that we need to know. How we end up designing experience within a chat interface, for example, where we escalate the top things that someone needs to do and make those tiles interactive. Maybe instead of thinking about how we redesign that in mobile and web, we actually just borrow those components, because the expectations of how we interact digitally will continue to change. I think demonstrating how you're thinking through going forward, every single experience that you are being challenged with, every single problem that you're being faced with as a designer across emergent interfaces, and then really bringing back how emergent interfaces may actually help inform the overall design system and nature of how humans and our users are interacting, will demonstrate not only a strategic perspective, but a high leadership perspective as well. As always though, I think it remains important to continue to test out our different interfaces across our different channels to ensure that our scalability has some level of data backing it. But I think it's actually going to be a really interesting time over the next couple of years to understand how design systems and how designing at platform levels continue to evolve. This is an area where I myself am learning, my teams are learning, and quite frankly, I'm interested to hear and understand what you guys are seeing in the market as well. All right, so that really helps us capture what we're talking about when it comes to scale. Again, what we really want to understand is what is the size of the problem we're trying to solve, very concretely and sharply and quickly at an interaction level, to a scale level where we're thinking across multiple channels, multiple types of interfaces, and which frankly will require a lot more governance and alignment. But really, that is the third question we always want to be understanding when we tackle any design problem. Again, we want to think about, number one, what is the outcome that we're trying to drive for our business? What is the outcome we're trying to drive for our product or our journeys? Number two, what are the core user behaviors we're trying to change or impact in order to leverage those outcomes? And then number three, when we think about scale, how do we think about that user behavior change? Is it just simply removing friction at an interaction level, or are we really trying to understand, predict, and measure how user behavior is changing, and how do we then design across our scales and change our design systems with our product and engineering peers to enable us to test and learn about that over time? Understanding these core 3 principles, bringing these core 3 principles and questions to any project and or design challenge that you're presented with is key in designer growth, whether you're just freshly out of school, don't know if we go to design school anymore, maybe you do, or you're a more seasoned professional looking to continue to scale your leadership skills within an organization. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm James from Design Kindly, and thanks for watching.